I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and this is round 5 of the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship 2025. We're beginning the last day of the group stage where all the decisive events are going to happen, and we're starting with Team Brazil versus Vietnam, which will decide who of these two teams are going to qualify to the playoffs from Group F. The tournament situation in Group F, it's probably the most interesting compared to all the other groups because 4 teams, Argentina, France, Brazil, and Vietnam, still have a chance to qualify. Even though Vietnam, out of these 4 teams, is the only team with 1 victory, if they do defeat Brazil today, their tiebreaker will improve, Brazil's tiebreaker will become worse, Vietnam's going to have 2 victories. Then if France loses to Argentina, or Argentina loses to France later today, then the tiebreaker of one of these 2 teams will also become worse in such a way that Vietnam is going to surpass them. So it's pretty interesting, despite the fact that Argentina, France, and Brazil have 2 victories and Vietnam has only 1, Vietnam has actually have a completely equal chance, or almost equal chance, to qualify, simply because by potentially defeating Brazil, their tiebreaker will improve. For Brazil, it is pretty simple. If they defeat Vietnam right here, right now, they will guarantee themselves the qualification to the playoffs, as they will be the only team with 3 victories in 4 matches, later joined by either Argentina or France, which is a match we're going to cover a little bit later. And Brazil will be either first in the group or the second in the group, depending on the score between Argentina and France. Because if you look at the dual difference here, the tiebreakers, or at least the main tiebreaker, is identical for all 3 teams. So it's a convoluted tournament situations, but the bottom line is that everything is in the hands of the players. If Vietnam wins, Vietnam qualifies. If Brazil wins, Brazil qualifies. If France wins, France qualifies. If Argentina wins, Argentina qualifies. So this is very, very straightforward. A reminder to y'all that the top 2 seeds in each group are going to qualify for the playoffs. Hi Ian, hi Self-Evident. Now it is 1200 UTC and we'll be starting the match shortly. Just a brief rundown of the lineups. Brazilian players will be the favorite today. They brought their strongest. They brought 4 masters, in fact. The only expert is Jose Edson on table 3. Gustavo Arruda on table 2, however, despite being a master, is not going to be the favorite against Vietnam's leading player with a screen name Portgard. As you can see, Portgard is rated now 617, but their peak rating is way, way higher than that. And they've also trained up their teammates as well. On table 1, Teus Gladiador, Eric Mateus, the former 2022 national champion of Brazil, will be playing against this player with a screen name BI1208. Purely rating-wise, of course, Teus is going to be the favorite, but 440 is absolutely solid rating to show some resistance. On table 2, as I said, Portgard is going to be the rating favorite. On table 3, it's pretty interesting. At least rating-wise, Edson should be the favorite against Wolfren. But Wolfren has shown strong game before, has won games before in this championship as well. And so if Vietnam are going to deliver the win today, then they need to focus on this here table, Wolfren against Edson, and possibly on Violet Dolphin against Fausto Barral. Now, Fausto now is in top shape, actually, despite being rated 559. Just a few days ago, they cracked the 700 rating threshold to become Brazil's 8th master, if I'm not mistaken. Do correct me if I'm wrong. So I expect them to be a favorite against most players, really. But then again, 472, very solid level of the game to show some resistance. So maybe just catch grip on table 2, 3, 4. That would be the route for Vietnam. On table 5, I would say that would be the most lopsided table of them, as the 7th Brazilian master, Victor Besson, who is currently in top shape. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, or when was that? He defeated Vivian Charlot. The Frenchman Viv, of course, in his duel against France, delivering Brazil the much needed tournament point that was also caught on stream. His opponent is Frey with a lot of Ys. Now they're rated 140, which suggests a newer player, also interesting 140 rating with 140 games. But since they have only just over 100 games under the belt, this probably means that they must have played outside of Board Game Arena as well. So their true strength could definitely be higher. Regardless, Besson is going to be the favorite. So I'm planning to follow the highest rated players. Even though I've shown Gustavo play a lot on stream and I've streamed Portgard before, this matchup is really just too interesting not to cover. So, what are we having ourselves here? 53 tiles remaining, so most of the game is left to play. Slight advantage on the scoreboard for Gustavo. One blue meeple already on the early farm. Like a proper Brazilian. I like this. And also this is one very impactful move as well. With this here dagger tile, he managed to fully block Portgard's road. This red meeple is now going to be trapped at 4 points only. And in an open position like this, with a 9-point field, which is going to get expanded into a 12-point field and a 15-point field potentially, and a lot of green squares for growth, this position is actually very, very good for blue. Because with that extra meeple, comparison to red, blue could wreak absolute havoc on the farms and on the high scoring features. The position is not lost for Portgard. In fact, it's really only a minor disadvantage at this point, because only one monastery has been drawn so far. A proud red Vietnamese meeple is standing right on there. And for example, if we were to get another one, then this stack of 2 monasteries is going to be worth like 16 points or something. So it is very fortunate for Gustavo that he gets a crack at that spot first, essentially equalizing this here monastery, controlling the little city cap of Portgard, and also massively, massively expanding his field. So we should be expecting a field fight soon enough. In the meantime, there are some minor entanglements in mini battles on the right part of the board. Gustavo now, I think, needs to make a strategic decision here, and the strategic decision is whether it's time to drop a second farmer for support. And he goes for it, and there are some good reasons for it. I maybe would have delayed a little bit further, but the thing with this farm is that despite our meeple advantage, from blue's perspective, it is actually possible for Portgard to fight for it. So if Portgard were to place a meeple here instead of Gustavo, he could enter the field and then try to cover up this other invasion square at the bottom, because somebody could theoretically drop a farmer here with a Dorito and so on and so on and so on, and then try to maintain parity on the field through geometrical means. Basically saying to blue that, hey blue, you have a lot of meeples, which you can use for farmers, but I'm not going to give you an opportunity to drop those farmers. Now, Gustavo sort of takes care of business early enough, but then this opens another possibility for Portgard to potentially win. Now, Portgard is going to be the side with the meeple advantage. Even though he has this meeple here trapped, well, these here 2 farmers are essentially trapped as well. Blue's never going to get them back. So what Red could do is try to maybe draw some monasteries to score some points, try to invest his meeples elsewhere. There are a couple of good monastery spots here in the center of the board, potential good monastery spots over here in the right part of the board. Or another thing that Portgard could do is start a counter field in a different part of the board if he were to draw city caps, and this is something that he's trying to do right now, taking 3 points for a road, leaving a city cap in the open. Hi Ian, hi Self-Evident. Portgard with a very interesting move here, and places this very, very fast. He spends a city cap on blocking, essentially, whereas, you know what, as Portgard, I would rather be starting a new city. I think this move, as lovely as it is positionally, just seems to be a little bit too fancy when you're behind. So this is just starting a new city, preparing a counter field for 6 or possibly 9 points in the future would be the way to go. The tactical merits of this move are twofold, though. Is actually attacking 2 squares of Gustavo. First of all, preparing an invasion platform or a blocking platform against the city. And second, preparing a Dorito tile to go over here and permanently block this square and tie this blue meeple. This, however, is not as impactful as it might seem, because very often, if this blue meeple gets blocked, then this square also gets blocked as well, blocking the red road in addition. Portgard now, however, just committed really a grave strategic mistake with this monastery over here, scoring 2 points instead of going for the monastery, whilst also giving additional green squares for his opponent's field. It's really not the greatest move at all, and Gustavo finds a very interesting response, which we're going to talk about it later. So I think that Portgard missed this strategically, because if you look at the points counter, he's ahead on the scoreboard, he's behind in the fields, but overall he's only 9 points behind, which is not that much. All he needed to do is just start a new monastery in many of the possible squares. Here was probably the best one. Here was also another alternative. Here, these spots are actually not so good as I initially thought. Yeah, so really that monastery meeple was an absolute must, because there's only 2 of those remaining in the deck, and there are not going to be that many monastery meepling opportunities in the future. And without monasteries, and not so many city caps remaining in the deck, there's a lot of clunk, there's a lot of big tiles, there's a lot of row tiles in the deck. Tiles with which you cannot really score, like this one, for example. So this was really pretty much the last proper scoring chance for Portgard. And now with all these meeples, he's actually going to struggle to score properly. Another reason why I really liked to see a monastery meeple somewhere over here is because the field monasteries on this board are not as good as road monasteries are. Because, for example, if you can go here with a field monastery and then a road monastery, you have a combination for stacking. But there's no spot on the board where you can stack a field monastery plus field monastery, except for maybe here, but it's just really not a lot of points. And we can see some impactful moves being played on the right. Portgard got his meeple back, got himself one more meeple, which is lovely, but then what you gonna do with all that meeple advantage? This is something that the Vietnamese player is gonna ask himself. Gustavo, in the meantime, made a very fancy move. Taking advantage of the fact that both monasteries have gone out, he decided to block his own farmer from invasion, try to keep the 6-point farm separate, and then use a different farmer to support his main field at the top. This is actually very interesting, because if he just covers up over here, then this meeple scores pretty well, scores 6 points, potentially 9. If this guy somehow makes it out alive, which of course Brazilian fans hope against, and with just any curve, this meeple could be easily blocked. Yeah, and this guy just needs one curve or something to properly invade his own field for support, making sure that Portgard cannot invade said field. Based on the fact that Portgard discarded the monastery, I might assume that their strategy is trying to drop multiple farmers and fight for the field. So there's this platform over here, and there's this platform over here as well, and perhaps this is what they're going for. That would be a rather traditional approach, but the issue that I have with this is that both platforms are blockable, as we're running short on curvy tiles. In fact, there are only 2 curves remaining in the deck, and so it is possible, let's say Portgard draws a curve here, goes like this, then Daruda gets another curve and then blocks the square permanently. So it's a very dangerous arrangement here. In the meantime, the city on the left gets defended, and Portgard is now trying to look for different win condition, which is actually a very neat find from their part. There are 2 tiles available to fit into this square, and there are still 2 tiles available that fit into this square. So if this does not get blocked, there is a 57-ish% chance of the city being completed at some point in the game, which should actually give Portgard enough to win this game. because he's really not that far behind at all. In the meantime, Gustavo is building up the city right there on the right, and he's now threatening its completion. Portgard, in the meantime, getting a cow tile, one tile away from completing his city. Both tiles need Doritos. Portgard with the last cow, not that he needs it anywhere. This is an extremely volatile position. A road Dorito either side could swing the game. And Portgard gets a tile which he cannot really use that productively. I even struggled to suggest a move, so I guess I'm just gonna wait. However, one thing that I would be considering here, I would be counting out the number of city plus field city caps. And a crazy move, but one that actually might work, is this. So we add a point to our opponent's city, but we make it harder to complete that city. Let's see if that works. So if we don't do nothing, then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3 Dorito tiles remaining that fits into that square. This would be 2 road Doritos and 1 field Dorito. Portgard decides to not do that. He goes for the farm straight away, and this worked very well. My suggestion would not have worked at all, because I believe there was in fact, from Portgard's perspective, only one city plus road city cap, and this just so happens to be the tile that Gustavo currently is holding in hand. So Red, averting a disaster for now, decides to drop a farmer and try to at least poke some fun at this here blue farmer. Let's see how this works out for him. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think objectively, placing this tile over here was actually correct. Because that would be... I'm not sure if it's correct, but it was definitely something that would greatly reduce the chances of completing this city. It's just in this particular instance, Gustavo would have completed it. But this is the last city plus road city cap. So this means that if Portgard were to draw another triple city, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's still the Castellon, the quadruple city remaining, then he'd be able to block. And now we see a grave tactical mistake. Portgard decides to first of all not connect his farmer on the field, and then he decides to try and block Gustavo's city, but he chooses the wrong orientation. Not because he guessed wrong, but the probabilities were wrong to begin with. If he were to go over here, there would have been only one Dorito tile remaining that fits into the square. But he decides to do it in such a way, which is the more intuitive way, but it left Gustavo 2 Dorito tiles to complete the city. So a lot of imprecision really from the Vietnamese player here, whereas Gustavo seems to be quite level-headed about this, and they now complete a big 26-point city, one that was completely preventable. All that Portgard had to do was just go over here. It's a very simple move. And if you were to get unlucky, and if Gustavo were to draw that field Dorito tile to complete that city, then Portgard would still, in that scenario, have 2 road Doritos to balance the game with a city of his own. Now, it's not really an option, is it? Well, it is still an option, but there's only 1 tile remaining in that square, so there's just so many factors in this position here that the Vietnamese player is struggling to navigate through. And now, of course, he's fighting for the field, which is his only chance at this moment, really, so he probably needs to do 2 things. He needs to draw the last curve in the deck to equalize the field, and that's a very nice tactical find from him, finding a way to efficiently get 2 farmers through just 1 tile. Now also Meeplum some ruins. In the meantime, Gustavo, I'm gonna say quite deservedly, gets the second road Dorito. which means that this red guy will not be completing his city, and Gustavo is on a way to making a huge upset. I'm not sure about huge, but for Vietnam, really this table is an absolute must if they want to win this match and qualify for the playoffs. Although we don't know what's going on other tables. I mean, you know what's going on other tables, but the way I'm streaming this, I don't see the scoreboard. You see the scoreboard. So, no spoilers in the chat, please. Actually, whatevs. You can write spoilers. I'm going to look at other matchups soon enough. So, Gustavo continues his 7-point road. Portgard, despite popular belief, still actually has a lot of chances on this. Because if he gets a curve, he will equalize the field, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An 18-point move. And then the game is going to come down to the wire. Now, he has a scoring tile. And believe it or not, these 2 points actually matter a lot. But there are several things that he could do with this tile. First of all, if you are going to score 2 points, which is not an obvious decision, but in this particular instance, 2 points will matter. So let's say if Portgard gets the tile to invade, he's going to get 18 more, so he's going to be up 1 point. And then Daruda is going to have 1 extra meeple, right? So 1 meeple, of course, is better than 1 point. At the very least, if you score 2 points, then after the invasion, the balance is going to be 3 points for the price of a meeple, and this is just about balanced. And now he chooses to take 2 points here. And it's an interesting decision because the intuitive move is to go here in order to try and prevent a farming platform here. Gustavo just gets 6-point field, which makes a lot of sense. And I was thinking as Portgard, an alternative was trying to get yet 1 more farmer. And he could have, with his move, actually gone over here with a farmer like this, trying to get a straight line. Now, he's trying to do this on this turn, but if he decides that he wants to go to the field, it seems to me that it's something that you want to be doing on your previous turn rather than on this turn, because now there are 2 fewer tiles that actually fit into that square for invasion. Now, it looks like it's an unblockable invasion through a curve, but in reality, that's not possible because he already needs a curve over here, and unfortunately for him, he gets neither. 2 quick points, straight line for Gustavo, now pretty easy blocking decision. We go over here, we limit this farmer. And that's going to be all that she hath written. 4 minutes enough to calculate this endgame through. Let me see if I can check the remaining tiles. It doesn't matter. So Portgard does get the curve. He's going to get his farmers into the field. He's going to equalize the field, but this 0-point farmer is going to cost him a lot. Gustavo is going to take 4 points over here. Which is the only move that allows him to score and still preserve his meeple in hand for the last move. Monastery tile for Portgard. And a city cap tile for Gustavo. Who, according to the calculator, is 5 points ahead. And all he needs to do is not lose on time. There isn't even a way how he could actively help his opponent. Just a 3-point field, and yeah, a very strong game from Gustavo, and I have to say, a game with a lot of tactical mistake from Portgard. Of course, some interesting ideas. This city build-up was very nice, and he kind of got unlucky into not getting those Dorito tiles, but then severe tactical error here that allowed Gustavo to get away with the city. Then, again, a bit of some indecisiveness with the farmers as well. So this move here was super nice, setting that curve. Then this here sequence with the 2 points and this farmer here. This sequence really doesn't make sense at all. As you can see, Gustavo wins with 8 points. So if you're Portgard on this here move, you gotta decide how exactly you're planning to win. If you figure out that you're gonna take 2 points, this means that you plan to outrun your opponent, which was actually still doable. There were still plenty of ways for Portgard to win. For example, Portgard would win if he were to equalize the field and either grab the city cap for quick points or get this monastery for 8 points. Either of these things would have in fact been sufficient for him to win by a tie or a score of 1 point or something like this. It is quite difficult to calculate, but hey, 4 minutes extra should be enough to make that calculation. Now, if he's going to decide that the scoring route is not going to be enough for him to win, then there's the farmer route. But if you're going to go the farmer route, then these 2 points have no bearing on the outcome of the game at all. And you're better off going here for the invasion as early as possible so that that invasion square stays unblockable. In fact, if he were to go over here, the only way how Gustavo could block his invasion is by drawing a curve like this and limiting this red meeple to like a very, very little field with 4 squares and 0 points. But if that were to happen, then Portgard would lose anyway, because at this point he already needed a curve into this square. So any of his future actions needed to be such that he would just need to assume that he's going to draw the curve. If he's going to draw the curve, then if you go here and drop a farmer with the crossroads, then Gustavo would have 0 tiles for blocking. He wouldn't even have, well, he would barely have tiles for creating a blocking platform, but in fact he wouldn't. This would be a almost 100% field connection, forcing Gustavo to either find some crazy scoring routes, which probably would not have been enough to equalize the game, after Gustavo would have a 2 versus 3 minority on the field. It would probably force Blue to drop some subpar farmer, I don't know, somewhere here perhaps, but this would be just very, very difficult for Blue to deal with. So it appears that a lot of missed opportunities for the Vietnamese player. It's a complicated position, of course, but you know, if you want to play in the playoffs of the World Cup, these are the kind of field invasions that you got to be finding. In any case, maybe in Game 2 the board is shaped a little bit differently in such a way that helps the Vietnamese player navigate these positions a little bit better. And now this position does indeed look better for the Vietnamese player. In Game 2, with 60 tiles remaining, the player with the red meeples already has a considerable advantage. First of all, the scoreboard of course still belongs to Gustavo with 6 versus 4, but that ain't no mean nothing, because these 2 monasteries are an extremely powerful stack. They already score a bunch, they're probably going to get completed. Portgard now is meepling also all kinds of roads over here, leaving another one behind, but creating a vulnerability here. And since 3 out of the 4 starting tiles are already on the board, now Gustavo can look into an idea of getting a Dorito tile like this and trying to permanently block this square. Portgard, unperturbed, just makes the standard equity move of finishing his 4-point road, starting a new city, trying to score. Gustavo, in the meantime, delivers with the good old Ukrainian technique. That is a way to mitigate the damage from these monasteries, trying to build a city next to 2 monasteries, suggesting to freeze up one of his meeples for freezing up 2 of his opponent's meeples. So that's a sacrifice like in checkers, you know, you give 1 piece and you take 2 pieces from your opponent. And generally it has a lot of positive outcomes. For example, if Portgard finds himself in meeple shortage, he will very often end up just getting a city cap and finishing the city for Gustavo. This move, however, is a little bit iffy because it's a bit inflexible. Ideally, what you should be doing here is building up with Doritos and stuff. But Blue's idea here is that he wants to create extra vulnerabilities next to this square. His plan, of course, is to do something like this and block the square, trapping both the red meeple here and the red meeple over here, and then trying to convert the game with his meeple advantage, sort of something like he did in the first game. But the Vietnamese player here is sufficiently ahead that I believe, even with a meeple advantage, Gustavo is going to struggle this game. So he's going to need a lot of stuff. I mean, Gustavo's going to need a second monastery over here at some point, which he has set up for himself. He's going to need a lot of city caps, and definitely what he's going to need is not allowing the Vietnamese player to complete that city. Because actually Red has did a great job of building around the city in a rather sneaky way that it's difficult to block, it's difficult to invade. The only way to block this city is to kind of get a sequence of back-to-back curves like this. But it ain't easy at all, and Gustavo now needs to find a very counterintuitive move, and it's not bad. He decides not to block at all. He continues his monastery, which honestly is respectable, but it was more precise to not do like this, to not expose this vulnerable square, which now is going to cost him. Of course, it was more precise to go over here and cover up the square, and Blue is now going to pay the price for it as Portgard gets the 6th crossroads already of the game. There are now only 2 crossroads remaining. Only 2 tiles that fit into this square. So a rushed move from Gustavo, a tactical mistake, will now make him struggle a little bit with his meeple management. This meeple ain't coming back soon enough. He's also now starting a new road over here, which on one hand makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, it's putting yet another meeple under pressure. What Portgard going to do right now is, I don't think he's going to go here. I didn't think he was going to there either. I don't think it's the strongest move, but whatevs. I was thinking that Portgard could go here and try to use this blocking platform against both of these meeples, something that I believe he should have done last turn. Now he creates the blocking platform against both of these meeples, but that's just ain't that strong. Gustavo, however, finds his strongest move, finally getting a cow tile and blocking the square, and talk about perfect timing. If not for this move here, Portgard would actually go over here with the 7-point monastery and just win this game on the spot. Which also makes me think that maybe the Vietnamese player used the chance for defense. With this here tile, it was possible for Red to go here, kind of protecting the square towards the road Dorito, and then try to get another curve, create an unblockable square here, then get a city cap and wait for one of the 2 remaining road Doritos for a 75% chance of completing that city. That said, maybe Red feels a little bit traumatized after the first game where he was waiting for 2 road Doritos and got neither of them. In the meantime, Red is still doing exceptionally well. Despite his meeple disadvantage, he's doing just fine with all his monasteries. He's going to get at least 1 monastery back. I'm going to presume it's going to come with a price. We see that Gustavo occupied a 6-point field. You know, the proper Brazilian field against we're the first on the farm. Always. But this field is closed. So it has 0 green squares actually at the moment, only 6 points. But if Portgard is going to go here, which he is going to want to do, then this will open up the field by a lot. With a couple of curves, all of green squares here will become part of the field, even going up to here, including these here city caps. So ideally what the Vietnamese player is going to want to do is actually maybe wait with the completion of the monasteries and wait until they get a crossroads so that they can complete the monastery like this and then kind of unbox that blue guy. But this will also come at a price. This will mean that their meeple here will be frozen for a long time, if not forever. Honestly, this wouldn't be my concern at all, but it's something that's quite difficult to see, because from the perspective of a Vietnamese player, if you were to draw a curve, getting a meeple back is such a natural move, so the control against your opponent's field can easily be overlooked. In the meantime, players exchange quick points. Port Guard scores with city caps on the left. Gustavo gets out of this semi-dangerous situation on the right by completing a 4-point loop before getting blocked, and an 8-point city in the process. Road monastery for Port Guard, and this here looks like a good spot, but it really isn't. It would be a horrible move if you were to go here. First of all, if you were to meeple this monastery, this meeple would already be blocked. Second, it would open up a connection to Blue's field and completely bail out this dubious looking meeple. But the problem is that there are not many good monastery spots on this board at all. In fact, the highest that I see is for 5 points, but honestly, we probably still go for it, because it's a scoring machine which allows us... Yeah, this is one... I mean, I get this. He takes 2 points for a road, but I really would have preferred the monastery there, simply because it's the monastery in itself were in a 6-point field, and there were chances how we could take advantage of that fact a little bit later. In any case, there's a counter field brewing at the top. Port Guard now needs to make a decision. Do we take the city cap, which is a natural move to make, or do we use this tile as a curvy tile to block this square? He figures that blocking is not so important with only 2 crossroads remaining, and he really wants to take the city cap and score. And since both players have so many meeples per side, Gustavo has 5. Getting a 6th meeple back is really not going to change things that much, so I like the decision here to prioritize not blocking, even though normally a complete block of your opponent's meeple, like this, would be the strongest move. So the Vietnamese player, 3 meeples behind, but 8 points ahead, and is about to finish an 8-point city, and nothing much that Gustavo can do about this. In fact, there is no productive move with this tile at all. The best move that I do see, actually, is not that bad at all. Is going here and dropping a farmer. Or that, yeah, but it's a bit weaker because it doesn't do anything. But we definitely do need a farmer at some point. And from Gustavo's perspective, I would have loved a farmer here. First of all, because it's a 9-point field. It's surprisingly the highest scoring feature on the board. And second, because it would actually still protect the square towards a 50-50. Because there's still one fechamento com trevo. There's still one... rose tile that goes over here and completes this. Gustavo now makes a move which to me seems quite wasteful and makes my blood churn. It's not bad. I mean, 9-point field is a 9-point field, but spending a monastery tile on that move seems to me to be a bit iffy as best. First of all, there isn't a great urgency with this field. As you can see, Gustavo took this side of the field, and Port Guard simply occupied the other one. So it's a very straightforward field invasion, which meant that there was time to still do something about that field. And ideally what you want to be doing, you want to be investing meeples efficiently. This was the last monastery in the deck, and whilst Gustavo has so many meeples, with not a lot of tiles remaining to play, I can anticipate situations where he's going to struggle to invest his meeples productively. Okay, sure, there's a 6-point field here, which he can maybe claim. He can maybe try and fight for this 9-point field later, but I can easily imagine a situation where he's going to have 2 meeples in hand on his last move, and the best he can do is something like 3 points. Whereas this 5-point monastery And the scoring potential that it had, even if it doesn't get completed, it's probably going to grow to 7 or 8 points at the very least. So it seems to be a minor imprecision here. But Portgard with a very interesting move, the Ostrovsky principle. He chooses not to meeple a 6-point field, but make it so that Gustavo, with his meeple majority, cannot meeple that 6-point field himself. So he plans to close this down, shut this down. Now a crossroads for Portgard. And now, interesting decision. So do we go? Oh, wow, so many options. Option 1, we follow with the plan from... I can't. Oh man, this is so bad. I'm so sorry, but how do you... Oh god. This is a giant mistake. Giant mistake. I can't, like, oh man. Like, oh, I don't know. Come on, man. Okay, first of all, the idea of waiting for a crossroads and finishing this is awesome, right? It's great stuff. The purpose of waiting for the crossroads is restricting this farmer and not allowing city caps in this farm. But then why would you turn the crossroads in such a way that gives a green square to your opponent's field? The proper way of doing things is obviously, and at a 600 plus level, I have to say really obviously, is like this, with a straight line up so that you don't give a green square back. Because at the moment, it is quite easy for Gustavo to get something like a divider tile, drop over here, and get not 1 but 2 city caps extra in his field. So I wonder if that was a misclick or not. Maybe it's something that Portgard kind of didn't visualize in their mind. It also has, this move has some other issues actually. Since there's still 1 more crossroads remaining, there is now also a chance for a curve plus crossroads combo to expand the field that way regardless. So yeah, a lot of really tactical imprecision from the Vietnamese player in this match. Still looking very good overall. He has now the meeple majority. He still has a considerable advantage on the scoreboard, but I mean, this is a massive mistake, man. I don't know what to say. And he is drawing pretty well. He's drawing the crossroads now. So, plenty of moves available. Yeah, he takes 3 points. Also leaves a city cap in an inaccessible location. And this looks really very good for him. This means that this here monastery meeple is trapped because now there's 0 tiles left into that square. But an alternative for both of these moves, Portgard could actually have used the crossroads here, either of the crossroads, and meeple this road, and then try to draw a curve for this square to get a 7-point road and then drop a farmer in that 6-point field as well. So instead of scoring quick points, he could have used the crossroads as a setup for a sequence of 7 plus 6, so 13-point move with 2 tiles, extremely efficient scoring. But he figured that since he's ahead, he doesn't have to go for this. Just take the points, take the meeple back, reduce variance. This imprecision here ended up not costing him that much, as this square does end up getting blocked regardless. So Gustavo with a straight line. We'll be looking for ways how to salvage this game and try to win the duel 2-0. Of course, if he loses this one, we still have a decider from Gustavo's perspective, so not something much to worry. But since we are 18 points behind, we don't have that much natural scoring potential. Now, one thing that we have is this city cap at the bottom. So when this city here gets completed, we go get 4 points on the scoreboard, 3 points for the farm, and meeple back, and that already goes a long way. But he needs something more. So I wonder if it's time to start doing stuff like this. No, like this? Not on the other side? Now I'm worried. Now I am worried. Now this farmer is good in the sense that it is trying to invade the field, but does it work out tactically? Let's count the tiles. The Gustavo, of course, wants to get a curve and go here and invade the 6-point field like this. And I like that idea. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 3 remaining curves. So we can do that. But the problem is, if Portgard gets a straight line, he can go here. And that would completely inbox this farmer. Now, normally, this here square could also be used for an invasion, but there are no more crossroads remaining in the deck, so that ain't gonna work out. What about the other option? Because my idea was for Gustavo to drop a farmer here and connect via a straight line, and there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 straight lines remaining, which means that Gustavo's move was actually more precise, because this, even though it looks much more vulnerable, actually no, the other one was better. Because you see what Portgard can do. Portgard can either draw a straight line to block, or draw a curve to block that way. So this move, even though it has more invasion tiles, actually not more invasion tiles, because this straight line can be replaced with a starting tile. There's still a starting tile that goes here. So this move has the same number of invasion tiles into the field, but it gives back your opponent 4 more blocking tiles than he would normally have. So this, in fact, is, again, a tactical imprecision from Gustavo. Again, I love the spirit of invading, but the probability of invading on the left greatly... I'm not sure how to phrase the sentence. It's basically much less than the probability of invading over here on the right. In the meantime, of course, a fantastic sequence for Gustavo. Also, he gets a starting tile, which he could have used to invade the field, but now he can't because had to drop the farmer here. In the meantime, Gustavo did manage to develop his field at the bottom. He now places his last meeple on trying to finish a city here, and now his farmer is going to get blocked. Portgard is going to go over here. I mean, he knows this sort of basic tactics. He's going to leave this farmer stranded at 0 points. And case in point, so Gustavo got himself the tiles to invade the field. If he were to invade the farmer on the right with the starting tile, he would have connected before Portgard even had a chance to block. But that ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. Portgard now denies an 8-point city to Gustavo. This actually has to be a very painful loss of a city. And now that we look about this, Gustavo isn't even like that far behind. He's only 8 points behind. With the field connection, he would have had 9 extra. So that already puts him at +1. And then now there's really not all that much that he can do. Portgard connects the cities, which is an imprecision, I believe, but whatevs. From Portgard's perspective, it was maybe better to do something slightly different, maybe like going over here, but it doesn't matter. He's 11 points ahead on the overall. He's ahead on the scoreboard as well, and he will be cruising towards victory. Gustavo actually is still trying to fight this, and this is pretty cool. Because now he's building up a shared city, and if he gets himself the last extender tile, he'll be able to score 6 points by completing 2 cities surrounding his farmers, and also get 2 meeples back, but it's going to be a little bit too late. Too late. He's trying to build up his 0-point field at the bottom. And I'm running out of hot beverages very shortly. Portgard, with a very smart move, meepling a 3-point field, recognizing that it is likely to turn into a 6-point field if Gustavo gets the last extender and completes the shared city. Portgard gets the extender, he ain't gonna go there. Instead, he's probably gonna meeple a ruin or something, who knows. Yep, trying to be precise until the end. Gustavo with a straight line. No good moves available to him. And actually, even with this field's connection, he would be struggling to win this game. So he really needed both this farm and this 8-point city for him to work. Or at the very least, the extender tile to score a little bit of something extra here. So the monastery cluster and successful blocking is what's going to propel the Vietnamese player here for victory. It is Portgard 1, Gustavo 1, and we're headed to a decider. So Portgard is now back into the 600 rating category, if that makes a psychological difference for them. And the decider on table 2 has started. So y'all can see what's going on the other tables. I don't. So who knows, maybe the match has already been decided. Maybe we're watching the decider for the match right now. Portgard is the starting player again. Makes the old legal move of meepling a city. Easy decisions for both sides. Gustavo with an early monastery now invades the city of Portgard. Portgard is going to take the first road of the game for 4 points. Very nice road here. Gustavo has only one move available to him, which is build up the monastery. Possibly with a meeple on the road, yeah. That's a very nice meeple. Many players would not get this. It looks unappealing, but the plan, of course, is to get something like a curve and then a straight line nature and tie these roads. And now this is possible. If Gustavo goes over here and starts a new city, he will actually tie these roads together. But the main idea with this move and meepling this sort of road is not only because you can draw a tile like this and connect the roads. Even if you don't connect the roads successfully, it sometimes forces your opponent into suboptimal decisions like having to spend a curve on a shared feature and helping us to build up our monastery just to escape that road invasion. Gustavo gets the first points on the scoreboard from the little city cap. Portgard with a great tile that allows him the separation of the roads and forcing Gustavo to use a crossroads in not the most efficient manner. Of course, still tiles that fit into that square, but it's going to be a little bit of a wait. Regardless, in any case, one of the first crossroads has been drawn by Portgard, so only 3 of those remaining. I'm not sure where he's going to put the crossroads, but one thing I know, he's not going to put them over here. No reason to help Blue's 2 meeples here. Red will be absolutely happy to get trapped with this one guy against these 2 guys. No, not many strong moves. The strongest move that I see is actually going here and starting a 4-point loop with this exact orientation. There's some other ideas. Maybe the 6-point farm is something that he might be interested in. Figuring out that why do Brazilians always have to be the first on the field? I want to be the first on the fields too. This wouldn't be the greatest farming tile because it's so restrictive. And in fact, tactically, there really isn't. There just isn't nothing better. And he finds the move. Not the most straightforward find. Gustavo, of course, with a chance to break that road. Rather standard tactic to do something like this and break it. An alternative is to go over here and just simply continue the road. I think this is his second best move, but whatevs. It's actually not a bad idea at all, you know, trying to escape from the captivity of this here monastery, whilst preparing to finish his own monastery with one of the 3 remaining crossroads. And of course, allowing him to add straight lines to this road for future scoring. Red is now adding himself a monastery point, trying to also put some pressure on the square a little bit. Interestingly, Red chooses not to add a road tile here because he's really waiting for a curve specifically to go for the loop. Gustavo, in the meantime, with a bit of a panic move. This here move I actively dislike. It has to be a mistake from the Brazilian master, simply because he's spending a shielded tile on a shared feature. This is woefully inefficient. There were just so many other moves, starting a new city here, starting a new city here, starting a new city here, and this is a really, really big mistake, a 4-point mistake at the very least, that could cost him some points. Now, Gustavo finally broke the road of Red, making it a bit harder for Red to continue the road. Red still gets a curve, but now I wonder if he even uses the curve for a road. Because from Red's perspective, a move like this could be much, much stronger. Trying to set up a road monastery, and now I just realized that the curve is in Blue's hands and not in Red's. Blue with a very strong farmer now. Even though these are only 6 points, the way you orientate the curve actually gives you a lot of green squares for future development and significant pressure against this here road meeple of Red. Gustavo, where the crossroads finally gets a meeple back, he might not want to meeple that new road actually, because that new road is actually kind of dangerous. I think it's iffy. I think Gustavo can really pay a hard price for that. If Portgard gets a curve, he's going to do this and just boom. And then just abuse this poor road meeple, but I definitely empathize with Blue's decision to be as greedy and efficient as possible, and this move I also absolutely love. I'm not sure if it's his best, but it's so ambitious and it's so high variance that it's like perfect content. It also probably looks like a good move. Of course, the purpose of this move is to try to get a tile like this, exactly the tile like Portgard got, connect over here, and then connect over here with a Dorito trying to invade the main city of Red with 2 blue meeples, overrunning it with a 2 versus 1 majority, potentially even completing it for upwards of 30 points. This, of course, is wishful thinking, and Portgard will be trying to prevent this from happening, but how exactly? This is the question. A tempting move is to go here and to try and threaten hard the blockage of this here square. And he instead does something that cannot possibly be correct. Not only does he connect Gustavo to his own city, he actually makes it easier, not harder, for Gustavo to connect his second meeple. Yeah, all he needs to do, he just needs to protect. And now there are 3 extenders that allow Blue to connect to this city. And there's only 1 splitter that Portgard can draw to separate this. And Gustavo, no, oh, I can't watch this. Gustavo, just think for a second longer. What Blue needed to do here is use this tile not here, but here, to prevent the exact thing that Portgard just did. The Vietnamese player dodged such a massive bullet, averting an absolute disaster. If Gustavo were to cover up this square, he would be threatening to draw just 1 teeny tiny measly city cap, and then cover up this square a little bit later, and then really truly threaten the completion of this 32-point city. Instead, he covers up the least sensitive square first, misprioritizing, and this gives the Vietnamese player just enough time to avert a disaster and invade over here. Regardless, it's still a pretty good position for Gustavo, because this connection here is somewhat vulnerable. In fact, there are only 3 tiles remaining that fit into the square, and Gustavo can still build up further and try to block the square completely. Then, of course, he's going to have the advantage on this ruin, not city. He's going to have an advantage, what's like around 16 points here in that area versus just 2 for port guard. And it's still a good advantage, but it's nothing compared to actually finishing a 30-point city. So, good news for Brazilian regardless. I mean, he tries to block that square, and then port guard is forced to spend a crossroads, a scoring tile, to defend. A scoring tile for Gustavo as well. He will be able to finish one of his 2 roads at the bottom, possibly even expanding the field, although this is not what my concern would be at the moment. But most importantly is that blue drew one of the 2 tiles that fit into the square, and now it is a coin flip. If port guard does not get this tile, then Gustavo's advantage is going to get really, really good. Here, Gustavo, I think, misprioritizes a little bit, finishing the wrong road. I would have preferred finishing this here road, so as to not to restrict our own field that much. There is also an issue with the move, is that it protects your opponent's meeple a little bit. So now, red doesn't need to worry about sequences like this, for example, where his city gets blocked toward this square. And in any case, he gets a city cap and tries to finish an 8-point city. Gustavo finishes a 4-point city of his own, still keeping the parity, being ahead on the scoreboard. Port guard, however, with a fantastic tile, he gets to extend his city to safety, now threaten a 12-pointer over here with a meeple back, and also takes away one of the tiles that Gustavo needs here for connection. Again, Gustavo with the misprioritization. I'm gonna say finishing the wrong road again. The road at the bottom seemed to be way better road to finish, because now Gustavo's field is really trapped at 6 points. I mean, these are all small things that add up in the end, but these 2 crossroads, man, they're real thorns in this position. And another reason why I would have preferred to wait with this road is because of this tile over here, it was possible to get a couple of points extra from this road by using a curve here, continuing it like this, and then trying to expand the field. Speaking of fields, Gustavo really doesn't like the potential of the main field on the right, so he goes for another field for 6 points with another meeple, dropping a city cap. This gives back a 4-point road, which port guard immediately scores, and now this situation doesn't look so bad for the Vietnamese player. He finishes a 12-point city. And now red is looking pretty good, because Gustavo's already invested on the farms, and the Vietnamese player has all the meeples in the world to fight for these farms. Gustavo now really keeps losing value from shielded tiles, and port guard immediately picks the shield up. Gustavo, however, will be able to develop his field on the left at the top. 7-point move, 4 points for the city, 3 points for the field, and another city cap for further scoring. Port guard now has a chance to invade the field at the top. Maybe a move like this or a move like this is not the worst idea in the world. Just gotta count up those invasion tiles. Are there more straight lines remaining? Are there more curves remaining? Which way can we actually equalize the field at the top? Other than the field invasion, I really don't see alternative moves for the Vietnamese player here. At this stage of the game with 19 tiles remaining and a lot of crossroads gone out, really not the time to be starting new roads. They'll be trying to be unnecessarily efficient. There is only one straight line remaining, actually, so this here invasion might not be as powerful as it seems. But I doubt it's gonna matter. This is a huge draw for Brazil. The last cow tile that would fit into the square will make it impossible for port guard to take over this here meeple. Moreover, The city at the bottom, which was going to be continued, now it's not going to be continued as Gustavo successfully invades. The only thing that he's got to do now is just don't go here. That would be bad. And he knows this. In those invasions, typically what you're actually better off doing is just building up your own side of the city rather than completing the invasion, and he knows this tactic. In the meantime, the Vietnamese player invades the main field of the game, and he has the meeples to fight for it a little bit further. Note that the last straight line has been drawn. Rather fortunate quick draw for Port Guard, and another one over here as he gets the second of the extender tiles that Gustavo needs. So now only one tile to connect. And there's no bailout tile available either, because the splitter was spent by Gustavo here for scoring. If there were to be a splitter, it's actually not a bad move to bail out of the connection, trying to go over here, finish the city and score a 6-point field, but it won't be necessary as another huge draw for Brazil, the final remaining extender to connect the cities in the center of the board for a whopping 14 extra points for a move, 19 points extra for Gustavo. Now Port Guard needs to fight really hard. He gets the quick points. He's gonna need to draw a lot in order to win this. Gustavo gets a quick point scoring tile, could either take 4 points for the city at the top, could even go for a 3-point road if he wants to get extra fancy, but the Vietnamese player is in dire straits here. He will need to engineer something absolutely spectacular. Maybe an idea of like going like this with a farmer, then trying to draw a road monastery and then abusing this here field meeple. But it's really not easy at all for Port Guard. Gustavo takes 4 points extra. Dagger tile for Vietnam. It's a good tile. Probably want to get a meeple back or something from the city. Or maybe there's a way to play a bit more efficiently. I don't know. It's not the craziest idea to go here and set up an invasion platform from the top. But I think it's a little bit too early to be doing stuff like this. It's also not crazy to go here and set up the road monastery for future invasion, but maybe just getting a meeple back, just getting that firepower is what Vietnam needs at the moment. Also, time management wise, it feels like not a critical position yet, so I really want to save some of that sweet time for the final 6 tiles or so, something like this, 5 tiles. 10 tiles remaining at the moment, 1 in Gustavo's hand, 9 scattered across the deck, unseen. Interesting, what are Port Guard's alternatives? Yeah, this is one of those time-burning moments, because it looks like he's going to just get a city meeple back. Just experiencing a lot of doubt after. But it's a good thing to get a meeple back, because you know what extra it does? It creates a 7-point monastery spot over here. And with 2 more monasteries in the deck, in addition to the road monasteries, so 3 in total, that's another route for the Vietnamese player back into the game. So he scores the city, he gets 3 extra. Now he's at minus 16. If he gets a monastery, that's also 7. He's already at minus 9. And on top of that, he's going to have an extra meeple to play with. And with the extra meeple to play with, he can just try an invasion of the main field. So Vietnam here absolutely has a way back into this game. It just starts with a simple move of completing the city. But the longer he thinks, the more I think that he's about to do something he's going to regret later. We've seen this before, how players, when nervous, when approaching the end game, just burn their time and try to get extra fancy. Most recently, in Mexico versus Portugal match, Licio Campo when had a chance to complete an 8-point city, just like spent 5 minutes and dropped some obscure farmer, and then it ended up costing them the game. But you know what's going to end up costing Portgard the game is not this move. He did find, well, his best move of getting a meeple back, but the road monastery for Gustavo is a huge draw. Not only does Gustavo get to score 6 points, 5 for the monastery and 1 for the road, with no further meeple investment because he gets a meeple back from his road. This was also really the key tile that the Vietnamese player needed to draw in order to win this. A 7-point monastery is still going to happen here, so very, very timely meeple release. And still a little bit of hope, but kind of not really, because he's a bit too far behind at the moment. He still has the extra meeple to try and maybe attack this field here. I'm not sure if there's a starting tile remaining. There appears to be one. And something like this and this. It's like, yeah, it's very, very iffy. There are no straight lines remaining either, so this here stacking option for the monastery doesn't work. What could work is this with a farmer. Yes. He's trying to bank on the last curve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there are 2 curves remaining even. Yeah, this actually might be even better. Of course, with the idea of invading the main 12-point field, turning it into a 15-point field, which is going to put him within striking range. He's just going to need to have a little bit of something extra on top of that. And there is a way for Gustavo to lose the game. For example, if Gustavo goes crazy and invades the field, which actually is not that bad, maybe he should do this, but if he invades the field and then Portgard connects, and then Gustavo doesn't connect, and then Portgard scores a couple of quick points or something, then that would be a way for the Vietnamese player to win the game. If the score counter is to be trusted, however, then it seems that this field invasion will not quite be enough for the Vietnamese player. But there's actually another way for Gustavo to lose. Imagine if he just goes the scoring route and decides to go here and places his meeple on the last road, which is a reasonable thing to do because there's still a couple of curves to get your meeple back, get 4 points, get a meeple back for scoring on your last move. But if he happens to not draw any curves, for which there is still, I forgot what the chance of that was, 20% chance from his perspective, then yeah, then obviously he's gonna lose, but he's not gonna do that. He just patiently waits, just makes a move which makes it a bit harder for Gustavo to, for Portgard to invade Gustavo's little field at the bottom. Portgard with the scoring tile, that's something that he needed really, really bad. But another thing that he needed is for Gustavo not to draw this curve, because now this here meeple is blocked at just 3 points, and Brazil will cruise towards an important victory on table 2, and possibly even in the entire match. We're going to find that out a little bit later. I mean, you probably already know. I don't see the scoreboard because I don't want to see it. In any case, even if Brazil already has won the match, which is possible, this duel is still important for tiebreakers because that will determine whether Brazil is first or second in this group, and this will determine the caliber of their opponent for the first playoff round. Respect to Portgard for being as precise as possible, meepling a 3-point field whilst also building up his monastery and maybe even setting up another city cap in his field. So try to stay precise until the end, and now all that Gustavo needs to do is just not lose on time. He doesn't even have to place his meeple anywhere. Just a 3-point road, and very nice sequence here for Portgard, getting 4 extra points, 1 for the monastery and 3 for the field by completing an empty city. The unfortunate detail for him is that he is not going to be able to capitalize on the meeple that he just recovered because there are no more tiles, and the game is over. According to the score calculator, 5 points is going to be the difference, and it is probably correct. GG is saying Portgard. The G was G indeed. Some nice draws for Gustavo, but also really what made Gustavo win the game was this here adventurous invasion. Portgard was stunned, didn't know what to do with this, and made this major blunder by accidentally helping Gustavo to invade the city. Gustavo very wisely took the city cap here, defended the invasion square, and then with the final extender managed to secure this plus 14 move and the win in this game and the jewel. Plus 5 for Gustavo indeed. And now it's time to see how we're doing on the other tables. And Brazil has in fact won the match 3-0 because Besson on table 5 predictably defeated Faye with a lot of Ys, and BY and a bunch of numbers on table 1 was no match for Deus's experience as the 2022 national champion. On table 3 and table 4 we're still fighting predictably. So let's see how Wolfren is doing against Edson. The only player on Brazil's lineup who's yet to reach the rank of master. They're in their decider. And this looks really, really good for Brazil. At least on the scoreboard. And honestly, there is just no way how you can compensate 34 points on the scoreboard, or is there? Well, one thing that Edson has for him, in addition to the scoreboard, is this here city. That's just very painful to deal with. The play with the black meeples, that's Wolfren, has 9 points in this area, so these block meeples sort of equal this. Another thing that he has is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities on this here field, which is under black's control. Black has 2 meeples here, whereas blue has 1 meeple here. Another thing that black has is this here meeple over here on a soon to become 12-point city, 14-point city. But I struggle to see if there are still tiles remaining that fit here, and I don't think there are. There are in fact no vanilla city caps, and no dividers available, and no extenders even, so this here square is blocked. Nice tile counting from Edson, successfully blocking that city with his 3-point farmer. So, looks like Brazil will be winning on this table as well. So maybe it's not such a bad idea to start looking at Fausto Barral as well. Well, that is interesting. So, okay, what's going on there? Did somebody not show up? They've played just 1 game, and that was 33 minutes ago. Can I just refresh just to make sure? Did they disconnect or something? Okay, I want to have a look at this real quick. What was happening there? So did they even play? It appears that they did make normal moves. And then Violet Dolphin did show up. Yeah, so there she is. And then at some point she must have lost on time. But then I wonder, why did they not play the second game? And most importantly, who failed to join the second game? Did the Vietnamese player disconnect? It does seem so. Hopefully everything is okay with them and it's just an internet issue or a minor distraction. But for now, we're going to be assuming that Fausto will be awarded the technical win on table 4. By the way, oh, hi, Fausto. I guess congratulations on your win. Could you just elaborate a little bit more so how the position was? At what point in the game did she lose on time? Who was ahead on the board, actually? And did she just lose on time, or also did she go offline as well? And then what happened with the second game? She just didn't show up and during the 5-minute time period? Because I would be curious to find out a little bit more. Oh, gotcha. So I guess Violet had other commitments that they needed to attend to. A bit unfortunate that there wasn't a proper fight. Yeah, so it looks like Brazil is headed for a clean sweep. And Brazil is going to win this group. Because their tiebreaker is going to be so good that neither France nor Argentina will be realistically able to surpass it. Now, it will still be possible if France were to win against Argentina 5-0 or the other way around, but I looked at the lineups like that ain't gonna happen. It's gonna be a tight match with a slight advantage for Argentina, maybe. I'm not sure. In the meantime, Edson just keeps scoring and scoring and scoring. He also dropped one more farmer on the left to take control of the left point farm, with the left 9-point farm with 2 blue meeples versus 1 black meeple. Almost counteracting the effect of this here guy. Wolfriend still fighting until the end, trying to invade through this curve, getting 9 extra points, possibly hoping to get a city cap to finish the city. That would be a nice idea, except that it ain't gonna happen because there are no more vanilla city caps remaining in the deck. Or are there? No, there aren't. Monastery tile for Edson. And the most precise move is to go here, start a new monastery, set up another curve for extra scoring. The emotional damage move is to go here and meeple this insurance road, saying to Wolfriend, hey, if you're gonna get a curve and connect over here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get another curve and finish a road so long that it basically matches the field. Just a normal 6-point move for Edson. Divider tile for Mr. Wolf here, probably looking to drop it somewhere in his big rightmost field. There are 2 green squares to successfully do so. Instead, it chooses to block a monastery spot next to Edson's monastery, but there's another monastery regardless. A teeny tiny imprecision for Edson. It was better to meeple the 5-point monastery for the same amount of points, but setting up a 2-point move on his last move rather than a 1-point move. But, you know, when you're ahead 34 points, maybe we don't worry about the precision that much. So yes, Edson could have scored. Yeah, and look at him. He doesn't even... Oh yeah, he just actually invades the field. Huh. I kind of forgot there was this farmer over here. Or yeah, because we were looking at the other game. So Black isn't even going to have any field for just for himself, except for this teeny tiny 3-point guy, which doesn't even match the 9 points for Blue. So very convincing win here for Edson. Possibly even approaching the record. Well, not quite. 135 points is a lot. But yesterday, in one of the matches, we had 153. So that's certainly going to be up there, but not quite. In any case, the number of points doesn't matter. It only matters that Brazil have won against Vietnam 5-0. Still, of course, great showing for Vietnam, preserving their playoff chances until the very last match, defeating Argentina earlier on, coming close to defeating France, coming close to defeating Spain, just couldn't quite make it connect this year. Maybe they manage to make it the playoffs next year. Before we dive into the tournament situation and see how exactly this 5-0 score makes a difference for the standings and the chances of Brazil and Spain and France and Argentina, time now to congratulate Brazil with their win. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do something different that I normally do, and I'm gonna play basically my favorite Brazilian song, something that many of my Brazilian viewers will recognize. If you do recognize what it is, do let me know in the chat. Congratulations again to Team Brazil for most spectacular performance. Yes, I see Bernardo recognizing. Yeah, there we go. It is indeed
ficou assim sem você, by Claudinho e Bochecha. Okay, so got it. So for the next, okay, so I see Elias is saying I have to learn something from Sepultura for the next victory of Brazil. Ok, combinado. Então tenho que praticar muito. Eu acho que Sepultura não é fácil a tocar, mas tenho pelo menos uma semana para fazer isso. Yes, hi Ignacio, joining the congratulations to Brazil. So Brazil is in the playoff for sure, but interesting to see how they guaranteed themselves the first spot. So 10-2 are the game tiebreakers. If you have a look at the tournament situation here, so what happens to Brazil's tiebreakers? They have now 3 victories in 4 matches. And in terms of duels, they are at +6. So 13 against 7. In terms of games, they're at +10, 29 versus 19. Can anybody surpass them? Well, in theory, yes. So first of all, in order to surpass them, Argentina would need to win against France. Argentina would need to win against France. First of all, France cannot surpass Brazil at this point. No, France could. France could surpass Brazil as well. If they were to win against Argentina 10-0, 5-0, and then even that would not be necessarily enough. Actually, in order for that to happen, France would need, oh lordy, what would France need? France would need the score to be 2-0 on 4 of the tables. So if France wants to be the first in this group, they can only afford to lose 1 game, and of course 0 duels. For Argentina, the situation is a bit better. They need to win against France 5-0, and the score has to be 2-0 in at least 3 of the duels. So Argentina can afford 2 games. This is my best understanding of it. Yeah. Wait, can Argentina lose 3 games? Yes, they can, because Argentina is at +4. So if they win 10 games, they're at +14. If they lose 3, they're at +11. Yeah, okay, so Argentina needs to just win 5-0 with a score of 2-0 on at least 2 of the tables. I don't think any of that is going to happen. In all likelihood, Brazil is going to be first due to the tiebreakers, and either Argentina or France are going to battle it out realistically for the second place for the last playoff spot. And finally, before we wrap it up for at least the next couple of hours, Vietnam, what has happened to their tiebreaker? Now, of course, they're not going to qualify, but it also appears that they're going to be in the last place in the group, because if they were only to lose a little bit, that's one thing, but they lost quite big, 0-5, so their tiebreaker now is -8, which is 8 points less than what Spain has, with a tiebreaker of 10-10, so net 0. Spain, of course, is not playing today because they have already played all 4 matches in their group, and this week is their rest week. Yeah, very interesting situation that it was basically possible for either team to be either first or second or third or fourth, really, or even 5th as a result of this match. And whether it's France or Argentina, we're going to find out in just about 3 hours. So what happens? In 1600 UTC, I think they're playing. Let's just double check this. I've already created the link to a stream. Yeah, 1600 UTC. And now it's 1331. So it is 2.5 hours from now. And you can join my next stream a little bit earlier because I'm streaming several matches today. Honestly, I don't even remember all of them. I have to actually look this up. There is a plan. So we're going to start with France, Argentina, an hour later, UK versus Chile, also a banger for a playoff spot. Italy, Slovakia, also kind of for a playoff spot because Italy has to win. And the last game, last match, Poland versus Uruguay, also kind of for a playoff spot because Poland absolutely has to win that one, I think. So lots of decisive events looking forward. If you do like videos like this, make sure to maple the like button. And in case you're here for the first time, subscribe for more competitive Carcassonne content like this so that you don't miss the next stream. Wait, just catching up with the chat a little bit. Yeah, just some questions about the tournament table, which I believe I have already addressed, so we're good. I'm gonna see you in under 2.5 hours for the decisive events of the round 5. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you soon.